What's up guys, Lifting here. In this video I'm gonna go over the Wonder build that I played in about a week ago, and I took it to around 93, and then I unfortunately ripped on my way to 94. But I very much enjoyed playing this build, and I thought I would share some of the details of the build with you guys. Now, it's not going to be a full build guide or anything like that, but there will be a path of building paste bin in the description of the video, and I will talk and share some of the details of the build with you here. But basically I wanted to make this character because I wanted to play a fast map clearer. I didn't really care about boss killing potential or anything like that. I just wanted something that was really fast for mapping. And if you add in Vaal Power Siphon to, well, many builds, you can get some pretty fast clear speed if you make sure to be able to sustain it and such. Also, I wanted to test the combination of Chaos Inoculation and Ghost Reaver, because in 3.0, in case you don't know, these were nerfed in the sense that you can no longer leech with Ghost Reaver and Vaal Pack, so you can't have instant leech. So I wanted to see, is it still okay, or is the slow energy shield recharge you now get as a downside from Ghost Reaver too much of a hassle, and is the leech not good enough? And spoiler alert, I can tell you that the leech is actually kinda nice. It's not the type of leech that will allow you to just stand there and face tank an enemy while he pounds you in the and but it will help you sustain and give you some extra safety in those situations where you want your energy shield to go up. So when you take some damage, you want that to go back up real fast, right? And if you leech with the Vengtars, it actually serves that purpose pretty well, but it's obviously not as good as back when you could instant leech. But I like it. Also, I wanted a Wonder that was a little tankier than the usual Wonder setups that I saw around there, and I wanted something that was a little safer against Reflect, because that is some of the really fast Wonders have that issue, and some do not. But I think I managed to figure out how to do that. One of the ways was going CI, because by going CI I could get an effectively larger health pool than if I just went live. You could also do hybrid. That's a completely other option, but I like this because then I could dedicate my leech probably to one source. It made more sense that way with the skill tree, pure and simple. And about the Reflect, I'm going to talk a bit about that when I show you the items and the Ascendancy here. And I've been doing maps really fast, really efficient, all the way up to tier 15 on this. But I think the build does best in up to tier 13, 14. Anything below that is, of course, completely fine. But once you get to tier 14, tier 15, if you put on two tanky map mods, then you will be slowed down a bit, because you're not always guaranteed to one-shot them with your Vaal Power Siphon. You are for the most part, and you can do it. I did it, but I think it does better in those lower brackets, and let's be honest, it doesn't matter too much if you farm a tier 15 or a tier 14 or even a tier 13. I actually prefer farming tier 11 and 10 if I just do it for currency, to be completely honest. And on that note, it's very important to point out that in order to get the full efficiency and the full power out of a build such as this, you need to be very selective with the type of maps you're running, because you need to be in maps that has an open terrain where you aren't constantly blocked by all kinds of small crap that you have to run around. So maps like Canyon and Dunes are amazing for this, for instance, but a map like Cells is pretty bad, at least if you're focusing on using the Vaal Power Siphon to clear. Thing is though, we're using both Vaal Power Siphon Barrage and Kinetic Blast, and Kinetic Blast is what you use to kill packs when you don't use your Vaal Power Siphon, and it's very, very effective. Like, it's only on a 4-link, but it can easily deal with the highest trash content, if you can call it that. So you can definitely do the other maps, even in those ones that don't have the nice layouts. But in order to really utilize the speed potential of it, then you need an open layout. The thing that will slow you down the most is map bosses. The build really doesn't have good single target damage. Even with the Dying Sun, I still feel like the single target damage is lackluster. You can definitely deal with bosses all the way up to tier 12, and then after that I just really don't find it to be worth my time. I even think I skipped them in tier 11 and 10 too. You'll kill rare monsters very fast and very easily, but the map bosses in itself, in my opinion, is not worth doing with this type of build, unless maybe if you get a 2+ to barrage projectiles on your helmet too, then you could probably do it somewhat nice. But still, I do have a Dying Sun, and it still feels kind of lackluster. I wouldn't recommend focusing on getting a Dying Sun in the hopes of thinking that will solve your single target potential or problems. And now I haven't tried this, but one thing you could do if you aren't that hooked on necessarily using Vaal Power Siphon as the main source, you could dedicate the 6 link to your barrage, and then you will have some amazing single target. Especially if you have a Dying Sun and the helmet, then it will be amazing. But for speed clearing, then, well, Vaal Power Siphon is unrivaled. But overall, I think the build turned out quite nicely. I enjoyed farming for it, and I did manage to survive until almost 94, and then I had that insta-rip there, which was my own fault. I liked it, but I'm not saying that it's the best Wander build or the fastest Wander build or the cheapest Wander build. It's just another take on a Wander build, and it was mostly to see or test out CI Ghost Reaver and an idea of mine I had with the reflect damage. So let me talk quickly about the Ascendancy class we have for this. I have chosen the Assassin, and we do that for the flat critical strike chains, for some multiplier, and to generate power charges. The thing is though, that the power charge generation is super easy to maintain when you use Vaal Power Siphon, because Vaal Power Siphon on kill will give you that guaranteed power charge. But still, the 1.5 is very nice. You could, if you had really good gear, you could dedicate this Ascendancy to another one in the skill tree, and you could potentially then go Elementalist, because that will completely negate your issues, or slight issues with the reflect damage, or you could do Berserker or something like that for some leech. But I decided Assassin and then Pathfinder, and the Pathfinder was mainly because of the movement speed actually. The faster movement speed, the better Vaal Power Siphon feels. It was also for the change to gain a flash charge on crit, very nice when you have to sustain, of course. And then of course you can see there's a bit of extra damage and so. But it was mostly because of that. You could also try Raider. You could even do Deadeye. But as I said, I think if I had to choose something else, I would try and see if I could get gear that could replace the Assassin, and then probably do something like Elementalist or one of the other ones. I haven't fully decided on that. I'm kind of happy with how this is. All right, let me show you the gear we're using. We're using the Piscator's Vigil. And basically, this is a wand that's kind of like Facebreakers in the sense that in order for this to deal damage, you need to have a lot of flat added elemental damage. You can see this. Attacks with this weapon have a 109% increased elemental damage, but you deal no physical damage. As a matter of fact, this wand does not have any damage unless you have some kind of flat elemental damage on your gear or aura or whatever to scale it. It also have a nice or decent crit chains, a lot of accuracy, which is really nice. This allows us to not spend too many points on accuracy notes and still have a very nice hit chains. Then it has a bit of attack speed, and you can see it has that implicit spell damage, which is completely useless for us, and that's why you will see a lot of corrupted Piscators out there. They're hoping to get, well, maybe Calling Strike, even though you do have that on your other setup. There's a few things you can try and get. Then the thing that really made me want to play this was actually the idea of how could I deal with reflect damage without having to go into the Elementalist or using the Sibyl's Lament, I think it's called, the ring. I remembered that when I played in 2.6, I was doing this bow Blade Vortex character with the Darkscorn bow. And that reminded me of Incandescent Heart, which has a decent amount of energy shield. It's not too high, but it's decent. But it also has 25% of elemental damage taken as chaos damage. When you pair that together with Chaos Inoculation, which effectively makes you immune to chaos damage, this gives you a complete 25% reduction in elemental damage taken, also reflected damage, so it's pretty significant. On top of this, it also gives 20% of elemental damage as extra chaos damage, so it's a pretty nice damage boost too. It gives us attack damage leached as life, very nice. It has a decent amount of energy shield, so had it had less than 300, I probably wouldn't have gone with it. That's not worth it because you could get a chest with a very high energy shield roll that would be able to probably compensate for the reduced elemental damage taken. But this will make you safer against reflect, and it also really makes a nice difference in overall survivability, because the things that are very dangerous at the current stage in the game is elemental damage burst. Think of a volatile, for instance, or the stuff on the ground. I can't remember the name now. But also in general, just monsters with various mods and so. Elemental damage is 25% of elemental damage mitigated here is very nice in my opinion. Then I'm using Thunderfist, which is kind of like a pseudo 5-link for my barrage. And it gives you a flat, or that extra level 18 added lightning damage. So when you link the other 4 gems with that, it becomes a 5-link. It also gives you some flat added lightning damage to attacks, and some attack speed. Overall, it's just very nice. It helps a bit with that single target. Let me just do that trade, guys, so we don't keep him waiting. Another item I wanted to try out after it had been upgraded was the Auction Belt. It used to be a chain belt, but it's been upgraded to a crystal belt, effectively increasing its required level range, but also making it significantly more valuable, or better useful is the right word here. With this, we'll get a nice amount of energy shield to scale, but we'll also get some attack damage leached as mana per power charge, which means you can actually, if you're not going up against bosses, then you can completely rely on this as your only form of mana leech. It also gives increased elemental damage with weapons, and then it has the very nice extra chill and freeze effect on you is based on 65% of energy shield, which effectively makes it harder for you to get frozen and chilled. It will not protect you against freeze strong boxes and some very high level mobs that has a lot of lots of cold damage, but for the most part this will prevent you from getting frozen. And this is nice because it's very hard for us to get the remove freeze on our flasks without losing some other nice stuff. Then I'm using Eye of Chiola to avoid being able to get stunned. You can use Valerium if you can fix it with your resistances, but it's a little hard. Or you could use Kiara's Determination if you prefer, but yeah. I'm using a Dying Sun. I only got that a couple of levels ago on this character, and it's nice. It does definitely increase the single target potential, but it's still, for what it is costing, probably not worth it. Then I'm using Vessel of Vingtar, and that's definitely worth it. You want to get the one with added damage to your attacks, lightning damage to attacks, and this will give you a ton of leech. It's very, very useful. It will increase your damage too, but when you're using a Vingtar, you will get shocked when you're using it, so you need to have something that removes shock, and for that I'm using a Basalt Flask here of grounding. Then a Diamond Flask, absolutely get that. Makes it more reliable, and when you want to use your Vaal Power Siphon, you want to make sure it crits. When it doesn't crit, it doesn't feel so good. There's no shatters, and that makes Chill of Corruption work a little less efficient, and it makes it harder to sustain. And then finally, a Surgeon's Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. It probably doesn't have to be a Surgeon's. You could do Amble or something like that, because you are getting flask recharges with just the Ascendancy. But definitely get an Adrenaline. The movement speed, as I said before, is very important for this to feel nice in the right types of maps. Oh, and I should say, before you get a Vingtars, you could just use an Etsiri's Promise. I did that for a long time, and it felt pretty good. Not as good as the Vingtars, obviously, but pretty good still, and it's much cheaper. The rare gear I'm using on this character is stuff with flat added elemental damage to it, like the rings here, and of course some energy shield, resistances, and where do we have boots? Try to get as much energy shield on every other piece, or every rare piece. The shield is important, try to get a lot on this, and it's pretty important to get it on your helmet too. These are the two main ones that can add to your energy shield besides your chest. Let me show you the gem setups that I'm using. The main setup is Vaal Power Siphon linked with elemental damage with attacks, added lightning damage, damage on full life. That's the nice thing about being CI. When you have 1 life, you're always on full life. So it's a very, very powerful damage multiplier. And added cold damage, another flat elemental source, and then chain. And if you only have a 5 link, I would probably take out damage on full life, so you still have the added cold and lightning, and you can keep your chain in. Chain makes the clear feel so much better when you are using Vaal Power Siphon, but make sure you don't have a source that gives you global pierce. So for instance, I may not have it here actually, but the Poacher's Aim jewel that gives your projectiles a chance to pierce, or it will make 1 projectile pierce, that will fuck up your chain from that. So make sure you don't have that. I did that in the beginning and I was wondering why it didn't work probably. My Kinetic Blast setup is, well, Kinetic Blast, added lightning damage, greater multiple projectiles, and pierce. For Barrage I use Barrage, added cold damage, damage on full life again, and elemental damage with attacks. And then in the gloves it has that level 18 added lightning damage. In my helmet setup I use Curse on Hit, Poacher's Mark, Herald of Ice, and Onslaught. So the thing that happens here is that when Herald of Ice sometimes kills an enemy, it will trigger Onslaught, which will give us that buff, and it will cast Poacher's Mark, which then has a chance to generate a Frenzy Charge for us. And together with the Herald of Ice, I'm also using a Herald of Thunder for another flat elemental damage source. Next to that, I'm using Flame Dash and Faster Casting for a bit of mobility, and it's decent when you have it with Faster Casting, but that's the thing about playing a Wander. You can't really use any of the typical, very attractive movement skills, but once you get used to using this effectively, it's still okay in my opinion. And then finally, cast and damage taken, Ice Golem, and Immortal Call. And well, that's to protect yourself against porcupines and such. Oh, and finally, I do have an Unset Ring here, and I'm putting a Discipline here. If you don't have an Unset Ring, you'll have to, well, take out Faster Casting for Flame Dash. As for the skill tree itself, there isn't that much to mention besides that I'm putting a Chill of Corruption here. That makes it so that there's a chance for you to gain an additional soul when you kill something that shatters. You'll be doing that quite often here. That will help sustain the cost of Vaal Power Siphon. And to further help that, we're also using a Sacrificial Harvest here. This is a perfectly rolled one. They're not too expensive this league, but try to get one at least 27 plus in my opinion. Then I'm using Inspired Learning down here, which is kind of like a budget headhunter. What it does is that if you kill something, if you kill a rare monster, then you will get one of its properties, not all of them like the headhunter would. And it's mostly, sometimes it's very, very nice and it's very powerful, but it's a little unreliable and it's mostly for the fun of it. You could spec out of some of these nodes here and then make better use of them in other places of the tree if you just wanted a more like solid way of going about it. But I had a lot of fun with inspired learning. I would keep it in, but it also costs a little. So yeah, definitely not necessary or required by any means. But it's important that you understand that if you get inspired learning, for it to work, you need to have 4 notables allocated in the skill tree for it to work. And so we have frenetic, nullification, mind drinker, and infused. All nodes that we can use, but still could have been without mind drinker. The rest is pretty much just energy shield nodes. I'm still missing one there, something down here, energy shield up here, and I have crit nodes, elemental damage nodes, and of course CI, Ghost Reaver. We have the wand nodes up here for lots of damage, and the flask nodes, which are very, very nice when using Dying Sun, Vingtars, or well, lots of flasks in general. And the way I went about leveling this was to use bow and level with lightning arrow. But I am pretty sure that you can level it with a wander, and I'm pretty sure that Vaal has uploaded the video on how to do that. And I'm gonna link that in the description of the video, so you can see on how to level a wander effectively if you want to, because my leveling method for this was just something not very plain. I just knew I wanted to do something with projectiles and such. And leveling with the bow, it felt okay, but it wasn't the best feeling. I think the other way is better to level a wander. You probably need someone to help you with Uberlap, or even Merciless Lab too, depending on your gear and your setup and things like that. At least I had someone to help me with Uberlap. Alright, this actually turned out to be a little longer than I wanted to, but there was a lot to be said about this build. Now please understand that I'm not saying that this is the best wander build, or the fastest, or the cheapest, or anything like that. This is just my take on a wander build that I wanted to try out for a few testing purposes. And I'm glad that I got to try out CI plus Ghost Reaver now, so I actually have an idea of it's good or not. And I think it's okay. It's definitely it's not garbage, as some people would call it. Oh, and for Bandit, Helbalira for the crit multi, flat mana region, and resists. That's a good idea. And that's what I wanted to show you guys. There is the Path of Building link down below, and also click the Twitch link below and come visit me on Twitch. That I would appreciate. And I completely ruined my outro here. I wanted to. It was supposed to be much more smooth. Anyway, thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?